So today's Cognex presenters, you've heard my voice the last few weeks if you've chimed in, and my name is Omar Fuad. I am the Field Product Marketing Manager for the Insight Vision Systems Business Unit, and I cover the Americas. That's North America from the tip of Canada all the way down to South America and the tip of Chile. Also with us today is John Stamos. He's been with Cognex for a while and has joined our Vision Systems Business Unit and as a marketing manager. And his specific interest is in the CDS, which we're going to be talking about today, Cognex Directory Server, Track and Trace, and also the Audit Message Server. So you can see he's focused a lot in some of our products that help with penetrating pharmaceutical and other regulated industries. So for today's agenda, we're going to talk about TestRun, kind of walk through it. If you have any, kind of show you how it is today and how it works, and actually give you a demo. We're also going to jump into Audit Message Server and show you how you can demo that for your customers. And then finally, a product that will be released shortly is Cognex Directory Server, which is part of our 4.9 release that we talked about a couple weeks ago. And John Stamos will be taking over and handling that. So really when we came up with the topics for today's webinar, it kind of fits into a lot of what we do outside the Insight Vision system. We've introduced a few different suite of vision deployment tools. The first one we think about is Cognex Explorer, and that's the ability to take one piece of software and go out and look at all the products on the line and on our network to see what kind of firmware and what kind of rev levels each of the products are at in a centralized software data program. We've also diligently brought out different ways to have visualization to the operator, starting out with .NET and ActiveX controls, and then bringing in the VisionView line of products from the VisionView 900 all the way to the PC and CE software. And then we talk a lot about Cognex Connect. We're going to have a seminar in a couple weeks about the ability to connect to the PLCs and how seamless of a transition that is, but then also talking with the robots and other HMIs. So to bring that full circle to what we talked about today, we're adding really a fourth component on top of that, and that's Cognex Secure. I'll dub that. And as you see over the next few months and leading into future development, you'll notice that we'll be beefing up those suite of tools that you can talk about really on the secure side of things, as industrial Ethernet is getting very popular and a buzzword for a lot of our customers. So with that, we'll jump right into TestRun. So how does TestRun work? Well, it takes an image database and you identify good and bad images that it uses to compare the current job to. And with that, you can set up different limit testing to identify different pass-fail conditions, and then also hardware testing to make sure the camera hasn't moved. Really the value of this, I think, comes to the installer, whether that's internal to the customer, maybe a controls engineer who's going to hand it off later to somebody else within the same firm, or even maybe an integrator or machine builder. For them to take the product they do and they implement with the characteristics that they signed up for and have it working at their facility, and then being able to hand it off to the customer facility with a preset sequence to run through and make sure nothing has been adjusted from the original setup. And I think you also find value at the customer level for them to take it and have a piece of software that can help them identify and troubleshoot to keep it working correctly and smoothly moving forward. So really when you present TestRun to some of your customers, whether they're the installer themselves or the end customer, I think you have a really powerful message to send both ways. So jump into a little bit more detail here on TestRun. When we talk about image testing, what we'll actually do is set up some challenge images and present those as good and bad images for TestRun to identify and be able to validate against. Then we can jump in and actually adjust some of the limit testing for TestRun to identify, well, is this not just a pass or fail, but on this image, maybe the fill level was too low and that's why it failed, and for it to be able to give that kind of information back to the operator. And I think a very important component is also the ability for hardware testing. If the camera itself has been moved, then the focus or the sharpness could be out, and you can set up a tool there to actually check the limit test on that. Also, if the camera is moved, the field of view might be off, so you can set up some tools for position or maybe size of features. And then lastly, something we all probably heard a lot about at customers with field of vision installations is if the illumination's off. So if the lighting has changed or they didn't mount it in the correct location for whatever reason, then you can put in maybe some checks on brightness or contrast to look for those type of features. So when we're talking about TestRun, how does that really configure and work with the camera itself? So the top left there, you'll see the Insight Explorer software, and there's no license required to use TestRun on the Insight Explorer software. You can run it through the software if there's a PC on the line or while you're doing your tests, and really what the TestRun is something the operator or the programmer will need to program after they've programmed their job. So it's built into Insight Explorer 4.6 and later. Now, all of our Insight Vision systems from 4.1 and beyond are compatible with TestRun. So there's no license required to put it on the camera either. So if my setup is a PC on the line with Insight Explorer, I can run TestRun from it straight to any of my cameras on the line that has the TestRun built into the job file. But I think the real powerful message here is bringing that into an operator interface, such as our Vision View products. And that is where a license is required, so you'll have to set up a TestRun license on the Vision View for it to accept and let you run the TestRun sequence through the operator interface. And we're going to be jumping into part numbers a little bit later, but I just want to give a general overview there of what we're talking about with the different components of the TestRun system. So how do we set up TestRun? Well, like I said, it's an Insight Explorer. It's been in there since 4.6. I'm going to actually walk through a demo today that will show you the setup wizard and then and show you how to run it through the Insight Explorer software. And if we look at the Vision View, after it's set up in Insight Explorer, then the Vision View itself will be able to run through the image archive and see how the current job file compares to how it was set up. Now again, this does require the license, the runtime license. And one thing to keep in mind, when we first introduced Vision View 700, some of that hardware was unsupported with TestRun, but we did make some hardware changes along the way. So anything about 2010 beyond, Vision View 700 hardware will work with TestRun. And of course, all Vision View 900 hardware will work with TestRun. And when the job file has it, the Vision View automatically identifies that TestRun is used, and a button will pop up for the user to then run the TestRun sequence. From the Vision View, you'll be able to see the summary and the report. And then also, if you provide access to the operator, they can then repair the value there, and we'll talk about what repair we will do through the TestRun sequence. And with that, let's jump into a demo. So I'm going to share my desktop here and bring in Insight Explorer. So you'll see here, I've already programmed the job, and this is where you'd want to start after you've programmed the job to be able to set up TestRun. And for the images in today's example, I have these Coca-Cola bottles, and you'll see here that the first one's a good one. This is also good, kind of moved around a little bit, so we're locating the bottles. Then we're inspecting for the presence of any liquid. We're also looking for the safety seal to make sure that it is correct. Make sure there's no crooked cap, so this is a bad part since the cap is crooked. And then lastly, we want to fill the part if the fill level is too low. So this fill level is low, and then come back to a good one, you see how it jumps back up there. So the way to set up TestRun is you come to the palette here on the right side and click on the TestRun tab, and then click the little gear for the configure. This will bring up the wizard to walk you through setting up TestRun. Now, as we mentioned earlier, TestRun will take a set of images and run the current job on that set of images to see if they're good or bad. So I have the images pointing to my local desktop, but if this was running on the line and I'd be working this through Vision View, I'd probably have the inside camera connecting to a server database out on the line somewhere. And this is where you can set up those credentials. Now, if there is some images that were added afterwards, this is where you can ignore those images or assume pass or fail based on something that may have been added afterwards. So we'll just click Next, and now we're ready to set up different variants. For this application, there's only one type of cola bottle, so I don't have different variants, but here's where you could add, maybe if I had 3 or 4 different types of products I was testing with the same job file, I could have them set up differently here. And we'll click Next. The first thing we want to do is have a setup action. So this is going to run before any of the test run sequences run, and it kind of gets the system set up to run test run. You don't have to select anything, but for this example, I'd like to reset all the counters for the job file. And we'll click Next. Now this is the menu where we're ready to actually set up the limit test that we want it to inspect for. So in this application, we'll click on Angle and do the minimum and maximum there. That'll look for the crooked caps. We'll check the fill level min and max, the liquid presence, and lastly, the seal check. So this took the values from my program, put them in there, but you can also give it a range of values to look over. Now the wizard will walk you through the next step, which is image selection. And here's where we want to identify good and bad images for test run to learn the application. So right here on bottle pass, I can come down here and comment that this image is a good part. And what I want to do is just go through all the images in that file and comment them out and make sure that they're set up with either good or bad. So here's a bad part here, so we want to let the system know that actually that's bad. And notice the border changes to a red, and also the indicator light changes from green to red. And so now I can say the liquid is missing in this image. And what we'll do is we'll just go on to every image and select good or bad and comment for future people who need to maybe touch the system so they know why this one was labeled a pass or failed part. So after we've gone through all the images in our folder here, we're ready to go on to the next step. And we're ready to take it a step further. Instead of just identifying whether these are good or bad images, now we can say on each image, based on our limit test, why it was good or bad. So what we'll do is scroll through all our images, and the first image here is a pass part. So you see the job fail is not selected, and there's a green border. So all 3 of those are good parts, and now we've gotten to a failed part. Notice that the job fail has been checked, and the image border is red. So let's also add another condition here for liquid missing. And this is going to be true when our liquid presence tool is failing. Now we're ready to go on to the next part. Again, this is a failure. Now the liquid is not missing, so that is not checked, but the job has failed, so that test has been checked. Now we're ready to add another defect condition of bad seal. And this is true when our seal check tool has failed. And what we'll do is we'll go on to the following parts to add all those defect conditions. In this case, it's true for when the angle fails. And then our last part has a low fill level, so we'll add a fill level low condition, and that will be occurring when the fill level tool has failed. So as we go back through these parts, you'll see each image has identified by certain failures it has. And for instance, this image has no liquid, so both the fill level and the liquid missing has failed. And then back to the good parts, none of them should be selected. So once we've set up all of our tests for the program, we can now set up our hardware tests. So just like before where we had our setup action, this is where I could come in here and reset counters or reset some of my job conditions for it to run its test. Since we're running in the emulator, I do not have a hardware test to set up, but if we were connected to a camera, I could click manual acquire or load an image. For instance, if I was looking for a focus condition, I would load in the focus. I'll probably come down here and identify a sharpness tool for its range, make sure that the camera was actually in focus. And for instance, if it was Insight 7000 but they didn't change the focus metric, or a C-mount lens where they didn't move the camera or the part farther or closer away. So that's how you just set up the hardware test. And then that brings us to the final step, which is the cleanup action. So as it runs through its test, do we need to do anything to put it back into conditions so that it will be able to go online and inspect the application? And in this case, yes. Let's put a reset counter in. And with that, we've set up the test run. And now you'll see in the test run folder, we have the cold bottle tests. So if we want to run it from the Inside Explorer, like I mentioned, there's no license required. So I can run the test run through Inside Explorer. The way to do that is to come up here and click the green Run button. You can also right-click and click Run from here. And what that'll do is it'll run through all the images and then make sure everything in the current job has passed to how you set it up originally. Now, for instance, if the angle range was changed from 0 to 1.5 all the way to 10 degrees, then it would not inspect for a crooked cap, and it would actually pass a crooked cap. Now, this would not be good, and this is what TestRun is created to identify. Somebody has changed the job, and TestRun will now go back in, and we can click Run, and notice that it says it has failed. After it runs through all the images there, that the angle is off. Now, there's a few different ways I can fix it. I could go back into the tool itself, or I could just come to the failure here and click Repair. Now, there's two types of repair conditions. There's value and test. So with value, I can repair it back to the original value in the job file, whereas repair test means I want to now change the future test to accept the value that's there now. So what I'll do is tell it to go back to the original value, and we need to rerun test run. So I'll click Run, and you can see now that it runs through everything and everything passes. So that's how we would run test run with Inside Explorer. We also mentioned that, the nice thing here is that we can run it through the operator panel, through the vision view. So here's the vision view for PC here. To add the test run tab, I go to Vision View Setup and click on Screen Layout and click Operator Controls. Now, if I did not have a licensed version, when I tried to go in here for the options, I will see an unlicensed error code down here. So remember that for Vision View, you do need the test run license. Now I can allow the operator to adjust the value for repair or the test repair, and I can also set up a log file to be recorded. So I'll click OK, make sure it's checked so that the operator can see it, and we'll go back to the Run menu. So now we're here, and we see our cola bottle, and now the test run option has popped up. So we'll click Test Run, and I can click Start. You notice it ran through all the images, and it gave us a pass on all the limit tests. Now if I change that angle range again, let's put it to 10, click OK. Now we're going to expect test run to fail. So when I click Start, it does indicate it failed, so let's figure out why. We'll click Summary, and notice that it failed the limit test and also the images. And then we'll go to the failure here. Now if I click on one of the failures, it tells me that the value is out of range. It was expecting a maximum of 1.5, and the current value is 10. So I can now go in from the vision view, click repair, and this again was earlier where we allowed the operator to repair both the value and the test, but you can change that to depending on what kind of level you want the operator to be able to adjust the program here. But we'll click repair value. And it asks if we want to re-execute test run, which we do. So it runs everything again, and this time it passes. And now we're ready to put the part back in production and let it run. So if we look over here now, we can see that test run stored the log files. Here's the one of the failed part, and if we look here, we'll see the status was fail on that angle verification. And then after we fix that, the most recent one, notice that pass condition on all of the different tests. So if we look at the part numbers for test run, the license for the vision views start with VVTR, Vision View Test Run, and they list for $5.95. But of course, you need a vision view to run the test run license. And I think the nice thing here is that you can add about $1,600 for a project that you'd want to add test run and vision view towards. So the next part of today's seminar is the Insight Audit Messaging. So similar how TestRun was able to send out a log file, we can have the Insight send out a log file based on different message types. Those are system events, changes to any cells that you've tagged, and then also system changes. So there's an audit message settings dialog box where you can set everything up and tell it which server to send the audit messages to. And there's then the different, 3 different types you can send it. So basically the system events are online, offline transitions, job change. The tag cells will be anything in your program that you've tagged that you would like to send out through the audit message. And then finally, if you change anything in the proc.set file, that would send out the system setting messages. So let's jump into an example. If you download Track and Trace, we also provide you with an audit message demo. Come back here, here's our audit message server demo. And again, this is downloaded with anybody who downloads Track and Trace. So what this is you can set the server location. I have it set to my emulator and the port, and be able to show here the messages that Insight is sending out. So if we jump now to Insight Explorer here, I'll take connection back over from our vision view, and I'll view our spreadsheet. So first I need to tell the camera, or my emulator in this case, to send out its audit messages. So I'll come to Sensor and scroll down to Audit Message Settings. And then here I can click Enable Audit Messaging. Here's where I set up my server address and the port to be able to send the audit messages to. In this case, it's my demo application, but this may be the customer's maybe middleware software or a PLC on the line that's aggregating the data, or PC. And then in this case, I'll send out all message types and click OK. So if I bring up my audit message server, I can now log to a file, so I can store this and also click Start. So right there, it's a create connection to the camera. So if I do a system event, such as going online with the camera, you'll see here it said the user Boilermaker 2, which is my computer, has at this date and time changed the system to online. And if I come back here and click offline, notice that it also has said the offline message. Now I have this logging out to a file, so I can come back here and the audit message log, and this is what it has sent out to the audit message server. So notice here that the user is admin. That's kind of my default user here. As you know, we have 3 different user levels currently in Insight, which brings us to new functionality here in the next section that John Stamos is going to talk about.